Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics. Today we're going to do some Photoshop drawing tips, and I'm going to be talking about line weights for character drawing. So line weights refers to the variable thickness of a line, but not just a single line, but the thickness of a line related to other lines in the drawing. So for instance, if you had all thin lines or all thick lines, it doesn't matter that the line weight is thick or thin. It's about the lines relative to other lines. So what do we use line weights for? Well, line weights can be used to show prominence of an item. You can make something in the drawing bolder and thicker to give it more prominence. It helps give three-dimensionality to a drawing. You can show things in the foreground with a thicker line. It makes them really pop off the drawing. You can diminish things in the background. Like you have a landscape way in the back, you can use much thinner lines to show that it's kind of off in the distance and it's less prominent in the drawing. You can use line weights to give hierarchy to things within a drawing. And most importantly, line weights can be used to just make your drawing look more visually interesting. So we're going to run through an example using Spark from my Spectre Comics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run through a flat drawing. I actually drew this Spark character drawing and I made the lines as thin as possible. And my nature is to just automatically kind of vary my line weights as I'm drawing. So I had to go out of my way to make this look as flat as possible. But I thought what we can do is run through an example where I'm adding line weights to this and showing line variation, line thicknesses, and showing different things with the different line weights. And then we'll compare side by side the flat drawing to this drawing and we'll see how they look. And I'm going to really accentuate the line thicknesses just so it's very clear what we're actually doing. So as we go around the drawing, I'm going to kind of point out different things. I'm going to talk about why I'm making certain lines thicker and certain lines thinner, and then we'll just get to the end and see how everything looks. So let's get started. So we'll start up near the head where we can just start with the face, and I'll show the various line weights. There's a lot of things going on now. I have a lot of round curved surfaces in here. So what I like to do is you can see how these lines kind of don't connect to each other. And what I like to do is I like to vary the line. So I'll taper it near the end, especially when you're showing overlaps of things. I like to use tapers to do that because it kind of shows like the line is ending. And then on a curved surface, what happens is that line tends to disappear. So that's why we tend to taper lines at the edges. So an item like this, at this end, I would taper this. So my drawing technique is to draw thicker lines and then use the eraser tool to actually taper things and kind of shave away the line to vary the line weights. So we'll kind of just go ahead and add some thickness to this line here. I'm right now just playing with the line weights and just seeing and just adding the curves, and you can see how heavy the line is becoming. Now I'm still trying to keep it really curved and smooth, and I do use the eraser tool to kind of clean up the line as I go. But now you can see, let's zoom out here, and you can see just that top line, how it thickens and tapers as you go. Okay, so then let's talk about the area below the sunglasses. And as we go around the cheek, again, I'm thickening the lines up. And the idea is it'll taper up near the end where the disconnect is. So we'll kind of just work our way around the face and thicken it up. And obviously the face is a prominent feature, so we do want it to stand out. But it's all about the tapers and the overlaps of skin, overlaps of fabric. They will all justify where you taper. Now I do go thinner towards the bottom of the chin here. I'll just erase and clean up as I go. But you can see how that's just really becoming bolder and prominent, and it's making the drawing look interesting already without even doing that much. But the flat line work that doesn't vary at all just makes the drawing look a little boring. I'm just going to rotate the image again. I've talked in other videos when I'm inking how I can really plant my hand on the tablet and then I can pull the pen down towards me. It gives me a lot more pen control. And as I'm going around these curved edges, it really makes it easier to control the pen and get the lines as smooth as possible, because when you draw, your hand's not very steady, so you want to be able to kind of plant it somewhere, and I like to plant it on the face of the tablet as I'm drawing, and then I pull towards me. It just makes it a lot easier to draw. And again, here I'm tapering up as I get towards the sunglasses. And it almost fades to just a line that disappears. And as we look at the face now, you could already see it looks a lot better, a lot less flat. So let's go to the top of the head. And now this, even though the skin overlaps here, I can taper this towards the top to where the first hair area comes down, and this area is going to taper too. So when we start fixing the hair, we're going to start tapering that down as well. So I'm going to change my line thickness here so I can get a lot more detail in and smooth out my line as I want. And that goes for the eraser as well. Give a little thinner pen. And again, trying to smooth out the lines as I go. There we go. And then we'll taper this towards the bottom. So these hair areas, these three little hair sprouts, it's going to taper near the point, but it's going to be thicker in the middle. Again, we're just using the pen to shave away at the line. Now let's, at the top, at the tip of the hair, we're really going to shave that down to a point. And thicken it up in the bulk of the hair in the middle. So we'll just shave this one down and get it to a fine point. And thicken it up in the middle as it overlaps the hair in front of it. And then we're going to taper this end as well, the area that it actually attaches to the head. So let's look at the whole head now. Now we've added line weights to the head. And again, tapering where the lines kind of come up together, tapering in areas that overlap when hair overlaps the head where it attaches, the top of the head, just adding a little line weight. Now it's implied that this line goes all the way across, but the hair comes and interrupts the curve of the head. But again, it tapers towards the top as the hair changes direction and goes up and out. So areas like this, like the area where the neck connects to the body, I usually start thick at the area that connects to the head, but then we taper it down as it connects to kind of the chest area. And then I always thicken things up around the edges. A lot of the areas that are curved, I tend to thicken those up, and then again they come and taper to a point. And another technique is to bold the whole exterior, really make the character pop off the page. But again, everywhere where I have an overlap, like when the shoulder overlaps the bicep, or when the chest intersects with the shoulder here, I'm going to taper that, and then I'm going to thicken up the line. Let's look at the whole thing here. So like this whole curve of the chest going all the way down to the stomach area, I'm going to thicken that up in the middle, but at the top I'm going to taper it because it kind of ends as the body parts overlap each other. So let's thicken up our line here so I can really thicken this up. Again, I was going to exaggerate this so that it was really clear where the lines should be thicker. So I'm going to make the chest area really thick as we kind of go down. I probably shouldn't have overlapped this hand because I would have liked to have a nice full curve there. But you can really see that chest pop now because it's so much thicker than all the other lines. And then again, tapering it near the top. See how that tapers and fades? Let's do the bicep, thicken it up. Thicken up the top of the bicep. And then where it overlaps, now I'm going to keep this side thinner and the bottom gives weight to the bottom by thickening up the bottom line. That goes for here, and then the palm and the fingers. And see how I'm outlining just the outside to really just make it jump off the page? That really works well. So we just want to clean these lines up a little bit. So this is a good way to kind of thicken up the area behind. Now this, if I thicken up the lats here under the bicep, it can imply some shadow there where the bicep connects to the chest. I'd want to thicken this up, but then again taper as it comes into the body, implying that it's connecting and fading. This is really good in line work because we're not using color here. This kind of technique shows that you're not showing color variation. You're actually showing line variation, and it shows the connection. So let's thicken up the back and taper it down towards the waist. Forgive me for my sloppy lines as I'm going quickly. So we're going to taper this towards the waist area. And the thickest line is up towards the top at the back. Now again, it's in the back, kind of in the background. The back kind of wraps around the back, but because of the intersection here, I wanted to thicken up to show some weight here. I'm also going to thicken up the bottom of the bicep, and I'm going to taper this. I'm going to thin at the top of the forearm, but then thicken it in the middle and then taper it as we come, again, another intersection of body parts where one piece is going into the next. You want to just taper that off so it really fades into the next joint like that. Anything that bulges out, I like to give a thicker line weight to. So like the right side of the forearm, because it's round and heavy, we thicken it up and then taper towards the bottom, towards the elbow here. Let's take a look at the shoulder on this side. Now the shoulder is a big prominent area. I purposely raised Spark's arm with the gun in his hand so that his arm would be in the foreground because I wanted to really show thickness of something that was prominent and in the foreground. So here we're going to thicken up the shoulders and the bicep and then taper things off as it comes to the end. Taper it off as it comes to the end, just like that. So let's talk about the last thing I want to talk about, which is fine line work for details. Now Spark has a couple of areas that have a little bit of detailing in it. For instance, he wears these arm patches, and I usually put those in a thinner line. And they just feature a little spaceship here, kind of like this. I usually do those in a lot thinner of a line. The Spectre logo on the insignia on the jacket. Usually this diamond shape is usually the same line weight, but then I'll vary the line of the S in the insignia. Something like this. And then I'll go over it and thicken it up so that it jumps out. There's some detailing in the jacket collar and in the cuffs of the jacket. And I use a real thin line for this. Even thinner than that. And when you have a very thick outer collar line, these tend to add a lot of texture to the drawing because they're fine details. And then on the collar, and then on the cuffs of the jacket, I just put some fine lines like this. And by adding these fine details, it just really gives the drawing, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of texture. And now you have a lot of varying line weights. This one is actually a better example up here because you can see more of it. But you start adding these thin lines here, and next to the thin line, it just really helps the detailing. And you can step back and look at the drawing. Now you have a lot of different line weights. This little flap on the jacket I also like to add some thickness to. Usually at the bottom I'll keep the top thinner. Makes it look like a piece of fabric's overlapping, but it gets thinner as you go up to the top. And then we're going to add just some detail to the waist area. Again, a much thinner line because it's detailing. And again, forgive my sloppy line work as I go quickly through this drawing just to make the video not too crazy long. So this is the drawing with the line weights. Again, I could have probably exaggerated some of the line weights a little better, but let's take a look at the drawings side by side. This is the flat one without the line weights, and here's the drawing with the line weights. Let's actually zoom into an area, and you can really see a difference. It just looks a lot more interesting on the right with the thicker line weights, the thinner line weights, the detailing. And that's really what I wanted to talk about in this video. We'll be doing some other types of line. So this video was featuring characters. We'll do buildings, we'll do vehicles, we'll do landscapes. We'll talk about line weights for various things because there's a lot of different ideas when you're talking about line weights depending on what you're drawing. So this video featured characters. So these are the two drawings side by side. Hopefully you found the one where we added the line weights and texture and line variation to it, the much more interesting drawing. Let me know in the comment section which one you prefer. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos and future Photoshop tutorials. That's all we got for today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.